filled with flies. That was a sentence in this book. After he opens it, it's like, it's a weird thing to write. It's like the mystery of what was in the jar was never in question.
Yeah, I did notice that.
It was.
I didn't make a note of that, but I do remember that, and I was like, okay. And it was at this point, probably it was the next chapter. I have it written down, but there were like, I really noticed in this book, and this is what my note says. Stein has upped his game. I thought the language of the book was much more masterful.
Okay.
Like it was just very well written.
I agree with you, but I did find a lot of this book actually like drawn out. Like there were a lot of points in between one monster sighting to the next monster sighting where I found I don't need to be reading this. I don't care to be reading
that's
this.
funny because I felt that it was very much like Let's Get Invisible, where it's like, it's over a few weeks or whatever, but that was the action was very it got to it. It cut to the chase and it was very briskly paced.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this one it made sense to wait because you have to wait for your. But Let's Get Invisible. You should be invisible all the time. Mr. Mortman's face at this point begins to change. His head floats up and expands. Now, you had trouble visualizing what the Mortman monster looks like?
Was it like E.T.? Like, or was he just kind of like bug-like? Like what?
See, I'm having a really hard time not visualizing the television episode of The Girl Who Cried Monster. Have you ever seen that episode?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you've seen the intro to some Goosebumps, and he's in the intro.
Is he?
Basically just a big bug-eyed boy. Let me say what Stein said here. Let me plagiarize some Stein here. His eyes bulged to the size of doorknobs, like undulating toadstools, and hung out on stems like antennae. His mouth twisted and grew into a gaping black hole with black lips and a pencil-thin tongue. He did all of this, Nick, while humming. And what's more...
Yeah, what song was he humming?
It was indistinguishable. She never knew. She didn't know what the song was.
Just because she didn't know doesn't mean it wasn't an actual song.
Yeah, but it's all from her perspective. And if she doesn't know the song, how is she going to relay the information to us, the reader?
I thought we would speculate, but okay.
It was Eddie Murphy's My Friend Likes to Party all the time. What's more, Nick, is he starts jamming fistfuls of flies into his mouth. Mr. Mortman, it appears, is a monster.
Oh, no.
She books it out of there loudly too.
I see what you did there. See what you fucking did. You thought you could get away with that.
I thought I could slip one in.
You thought you could sneak it in. You thought you could just like borrow it and take it out.
She don't care none about this, Nick. She runs out until she is at least a block away. And now, Nick, some of the insanity starts to flow out of this girl. She argues with herself.
Well, she is of that age.
You never did a story about that, eh?
My Hairiest Adventure.
Yeah, but that was from the guy's perspective. It's a little less bloody.
But isn't like his best friend a girl, and she's also going through them changes?
Yeah, but I think she's also just getting hairy.
What do you think them changes are?
I'm talking about blood, man. I'm talking about blood. My bloodiest adventure.
And with the blood comes the hair.
Yeah. A follow-up to There Will Be Blood. And with the blood comes the hair. Oh, I'm an oil woman.
It's a very different movie.
Okay.
It's a very different movie.
So she's standing on the street corner, Nick, arguing with herself. Bunch of different voices. Did you pick up on this? It's not just one voice. It's not her own voice even. It's not even described as her voice. It's just there are different voices inside convincing her this was all an illusion, a trick of the light. Yeah. And one voice yells out, "No!" And she has to face the hard reality of what she's witnessed.
Yep.
They are not specifically her voices. What does this mean?
I don't know. I read this and I was just like, oh, what?
Because so far she's painted as this girl who basically has no friends, no real friends, is obsessed with monsters, does not know when to quit talking about monsters around people. Even a 6-year-old doesn't want to be around her, and now she's hearing voices. seeing monsters and hearing voices.
I feel like she's on the verge of a psychotic break because of the traumatic stress that she's enduring.
What stress?
I think her mind is trying to cope with something. I don't know what.
But we don't know what it is.
No.
Okay. Because we're seeing it through her perspective.
Because we're seeing it through her perspective, and it's just like, oh, Mr. Mortman's turning into a monster and eating flies.
How convenient for a girl who has monsters on the brain.
Who loves monsters all the time.
It starts to rain, Nick, and she realizes yet again, Nick, she has forgotten her rollerblades
twice
at
now?
the library.
Oh my god.
She no short-term memory, really.
She's like the guy from Memento.
Yeah. But if Memento was just a guy who kept forgetting his rollerblades at the library.
Yeah.
And instead of taking the loss, she insanely decides to go back to the library again after just seeing a monster. And also, instead of sneaking back in, this time she's going to make a lot of noise.
Hey, everybody, I'm here. I'm loud and in charge. I just want my rollerblades. What's up?
Hey, Mortman, I don't know if you're a monster, but I'm here, and I'm walking, and there's a loud noises. They're going to
clump, 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 clump.
I'm not a bear, Lucy. I will kill you. I'm not afraid. Anyway, library is locked, so Lucy, you got lucky.
I was going to say she's shit out of luck, but...
well, yeah, I guess it depends how you view what you want out of life. Do you want to get killed in a library?
That's a loaded question.
She'll get her rollerblades tomorrow, she says. She goes home, Nick, and tries to tell her family, but of course they don't believe her, and it never even crossed her mind that they might not believe her. She is very offended that they do not believe yet another monster story after she's told at least 5 in one day.
Yeah, but it's also because Dad's too preoccupied because he likes big meatballs.
Yes.
He loves big meatballs.
He insists that he loves his meatballs big.
Yep.
And how does Mrs. Dark prefer her meatballs?
I didn't take note of that.
Well, small and delicate.
Right. He likes big, juicy meatballs.
I don't know what you're getting at. I don't even know why I wrote this down, but I figured you'd like it when people argue about food. Because you liked it when the people from Welcome to Dead House were arguing about bacon.
No, and then Lucy says everything about her father is big, from his voice to everything. And I was just like, he's got a big mouth for big meatballs.
He's got to have a big old mouth for those meatballs. Are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for... I don't know the rest of the words.
Neither do I.
That's all you need to know. But Nick, let's backtrack a little bit here.
Yep.
Your father...
No.
In this situation... You're arguing over meatballs, whatever. But your 12-year-old daughter comes in, soaking wet, crying, scared, yelling that the weirdo librarian she was alone with for the past hour is a monster. Yeah. I feel like you would take her a little more seriously, right? Maybe hear her out.
Well, see, that's the thing. Then that's like, where the title of the book comes from. It's like, the boy who cried wolf. Like, when something does happen, no one's going to believe you.
Yeah. She goes up to her room, tries convincing herself it was all her imagination. Just her imagination. And doesn't even try mentioning it during supper. She does pretty well. She actually doesn't talk about monsters.
Until her dad asks
yeah, you're right.
What book she got.
Frankenstein is like, oh, Jesus Christ,
That's
Lucy.
a very advanced book for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, and I think...
It's not even written in English. It's written in quote-unquote English.
She didn't get, like, the child version of Frankenstein?
No. I don't think so, because she was like, the text is too small and it's really long and I don't know what these words are. What's voracious? I'm assuming that is a word in Frankenstein.
There's a lot of words and no one's going to challenge you.
There are a lot of words.
After the meatballs are eaten, Randy is in her bedroom and wants the deets on Mortman. But just as Lucy gets to the fly-eating bit, their dad bursts into the room. Hey,
you want to see my new chainsaw and hockey mask?
No, just burst in furious.
Fast and furious?
Yeah. He did it pretty fast and furious to boot.
Was he too fast?
I think he was just appropriately fast.
But was he too furious?
No, moderately furious, but just enough. Not enough to get her to stop telling monster stories.
Did he Tokyo drift?
What does that mean? He Tokyo drifted a little bit towards the end there.
Right.
It's hard to tell, but if you're an avid Goosebumps reader and Vin Diesel fan, you know.
Who?
The cop from Say Cheese and Die.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then you know how you Tokyo drift out of a room. She decides she's going to have to prove it to her family. Getting into dangerous waters here, Lucy. Yeah. I mean, a smart child would just not go back to the library. But she's so determined on having her parents think she's... Well, she tries that. Well, yeah.
She does try that eventually, and they're like, you're lazy.
Yeah, but she's more like... The thing is, she could save her life, but her parents will think she's crazy. And she can't have that. She's so mad at them for not believing her. But, at a certain point, she does realize, it's like, well... I do tell a lot of tall tales. So now, this comes in a little later. Yeah. We'll get to that then.
Yeah.
So, a week later now, on her way to the Reading Rangers meeting, she stops by Erin's house. Really a useless scene. But they do get to promote a Frisbee, and not just any Frisbee, a new sort of Frisbee. The return of Frisbee with a capital F. This one is attached to a long rubber band.
Oh, yeah. Which, at that point, it's just like, just get a boomerang.
Yeah. It seemed like Erin was having a real tough time getting any functional use out of this.
Yep. It kept snapping and falling, and he's just like...
Most of the time, he's just trying to untangle it.
Yeah.
I looked it up, too, on Google, and could not find any info on it.
You Googled it on Bing?
I'm one of the only people who still uses Bing. And they send me a check every month. And I used to be really addicted to Yahoo and web crawler, but Bing surpassed them, leaps and bounds. So Frisbee,
hotbot.
Stein just really wanted to get a Frisbee in this book.
Yeah, that Frisbee's not going beyond the Alta Vista.
No, he went too long without writing a Frisbee into one of his books. And so this Frisbee, Nick, is this something that R.L. Stein invented for the book and then immediately trashed, saying how awful it was because Erin just couldn't use it?
I don't know.
It's like Frisbee, but without all the socializing. Because at one point, Lucy wants to play.
Do you want to socialize with people who play Frisbee? I've seen people who play Frisbee. They are hippies.
Yeah.
I don't want none.
Lucy's a little desperate here, man. She's like, I'll play with you, Erin. Can we play this game? It's like, well, it's made for one person, Lucy. You can't play.
Whoa, I've had flashbacks to my childhood.
It's like, yeah, but, we could make it work. And he's like, no, Lucy, it's a one-person game. You got to go.
Yeah.
So, Lucy...
There are no monsters on this Frisbee.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't like it, Lucy. No monsters.
No monsters.
So Lucy leaves and goes to the library. She gets there just as Mr. Mortman was finishing with another girl. Lucy spied on the placing of the gold star and the soggy handshake that followed, as well as noticing the look of disgust on this poor girl as she tried to keep it hidden. I mean, that's all. That's written in this book, Nick.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
It's she's spying on them doing this, and she's noticing the look of disgust on the poor girl.
But aren't these kids with her parents?
No, there's no parents.
Sure, there are parents later on when she's spying on them, and it's like
there's a grandmother and a little girl named Samantha.
Yeah.
But I think
needs to learn how to read.
Mm-hmm. But this girl is not with anybody. And she passes by Lucy, and they exchange glances and talk about what books they have. And I believe this little girl has White Fang.
Yes, Jack London.
What does Lucy think this book is about?
Monsters.
Because of the fang.
Yeah. Well, it's about a dog.
Yeah, that's a kind of monster.
Wolf.
Yeah. Half wolf or full wolf?
Half wolf, half man.
Very much like Balto. One day I'd really like to go to New York City and see the statue of Balto for myself in Central Park.
I didn't know there was one. I know there's the Alice in Wonderland thing.
Alice in what now?
It's a statue to the adult film star Alice in Wonderland.
Allison?
Yes.
Wonderland. Interesting. I will check it out when I go to look at the statue of the dog. During the discussion of Lucy's book of the week, Frankenstein, Lucy